think as from next week, things will start to settle down. Because the report has been submitted. And they were expecting that the initial announcements will be made. And don't forget that he's inheriting a very comatose economy that has been devastated over the last 8-10 years. And therefore,
I thought it's more like for a very, very long time.
Well, it has never been this bad. Yeah, because if you look at the bench price of crude oil, we never had it so good.
Okay, global issues.
Yes, we never had it so good. But then we mismanaged the whole process. So it's now for us to come back to the drawing board. And I believe they have done enough homework. And it's now for us to move forward. And you see, once the executive is able to stimulate other, the legislature will take a cue, the judiciary will take a cue, and the populace too will also take a cue. Because what you have in this country is the absence of a leadership that is in a position to navigate change. I mean, positive transformation of the society.
Thank you.
If they are asked queue, and you see your leader queuing up, what do? You take a queue, you follow him.
But you know, it's been 2 weeks plus now. Yes. I think that the president has come.
You don't expect everything to happen in one day.
Yes, so, but some people are saying if you can't announce your cabinet in 2 weeks, when are you going to do this?
Well, when you talk about cabinet announcement, fortunately, I've been opportune to serve in government in the past. It's not that easy. You are talking about, for example, now, it's in a dilemma. The constitution says you must appoint one minister from each state of the federation. That is a minimum of 36 ministers. And we are saying that the economy cannot sustain that sort of arrangement. So, and again, the constitution is the grand norm. So, whether he likes it or not, he has to conform with the constitution of the country. And in managing all these issues, economic issues, social economic issues, environmental issues and all that, it requires a lot of time. And don't forget, you have only 24 hours in a day.
So let me just ask a little question.
Yes.
First is that, as a former head of state,
yes,
and a very senior citizen,
yes,
so there are certain things that are not coming up today. He's known that it's one minister per state.
Yes.
I really don't see that as a problem.
Yes.
I can have 100 ministers. What the problem is, what I decide that each minister should have. Yes. So I think it's just commonsensical, I would say, for you not to bother your head with what is a constitutional provision, but rather take advantage of the fact that no constitution says that a minister must have 20 cars. A minister must have, it's just like having a permanent secretary per ministry. What you do is limit your minister's entitlement to your capacity.
Okay, excuse
me.
Let me now answer that question.
Yes, sir.
You see, you need to understand the dynamics of power.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about 36 ministers, yes, it's quite easy. One, the process has to go through.
Yes, sir.
Security clearance.
So, but you can't change it.
Excuse me. Security clearance.
Okay, gentlemen, let me just come in here. Let's bring in the legal practitioner here.
I was a lawyer.
I know you're a lawyer, Dr. Fassi. But let's have, I'm going to leave you as a communication specialist here. We'll come back to you. Let's have you, the lawyer, tell us, yes, it's in 2 weeks. There's no portion of the Constitution, correct me if I'm wrong, that says the cabinet must be announced within 2 weeks. There's no portion of the Constitution.
There is none.
But yes, we have also established the fact that every state must be represented. Is there any portion of the Constitution that says the minister must have 3 cars?
No.
See, so let's look at with all the expectations.
One thing Nigerians should understand is this government is just transiting from another government to another. It's not as if they're just, coming back like President Jonathan did in 2011 when he just served the remainder tenure for late Yar'Adua and then won another election, in which case there were within this kind of knowledge some people he wanted to retain from his past cabinet. People have penciled down that these are people I'm not going to do away with. But this time it's entirely different ball game. Don't forget, it was just yesterday that the transition committee headed by Ahmed Joda just handed over the report to him. And from what we heard, Mr. President wants to take time to study those reports. And there have been some arguments on the issue of appointment of 36 ministers for that provision of the Constitution should be given a wider interpretation. to us, to some minds, it doesn't necessarily mean there must be 36 ministers at a go. I mean, if Mr. President wants, he could go ahead to appoint maybe about 12 or 18. But provided before the end of his tenure of office, there must be 36. That's what, if you give it a further interpretation, that's a new one. If you look in the past, there are sometimes, previous government will, sack some ministers. And before they reappoint, it will take time. And that material point in time, they are not up to 36 ministers.
Okay.
So one could say, provided before his tenure,
so it could be like a round robin thing.
Round robin, it could just be no trickle, but it must satisfy before the tenure of one could give it out. If you look at the interpretation, it doesn't say it must be at a go.
Because if you break 36,
yes,
36, that's about 18 ministers.
Yes.
So you do 18 ministers,
they
finish it for like 1 or 2 years, switch them out.
Before his termination of his tenure,
he must have
36. One could give it, if you read strictly, you want to interpret that aspect of our law. It's not compulsory that it must emerge at the same time.
Mr. Mara, you besides the fact that you're a governorship candidate, you were also a technocrat, a known technocrat. You managed companies and all.
Correct.
Do you think, yes, let's just say we do a round robin thing, first 18, after 1 year, substitute and bring the other 18. What about the issue of party influence in cabinet selection, especially considering the fact that someone actually tweeted this. Sharafa Balogun says that Mr. Lai Mohammed was suggesting, mark the word, suggesting that the president is not the leader of the APC. What about party influence in the selection of that cabinet?
I tell you, I'm enjoying this projection that is going on. But ultimately, the president wants to do what is right for this country. I mean, you know the kind of person he is. He's a disciplined person. He's somebody who wants to lead by example. Yeah, and he really is committed to the change that the APC is preaching. And from his style of leadership so far, he's carrying the party along. He doesn't want to do things on his own. He's giving those assurances all the time. So I believe that the party will work closely with him to come up. You know, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So it was important that all the time that was taken, and the report has been given to him. There are recommendations in those reports. I'm sure this issue we are discussing here must have been treated in the transition. And we are going to, all this will be unveiled in the next coming week. So there's an approach. Definitely the ministers will come, whether they will be 36 or 18 or whatever. We can only speculate. But I believe that the transition committee did a very good job, and the president will read it and then unveil some of these things very soon.
Yes, I was going to talk about the process of appointing ministers, and that will also lead to the confirmation. Don't forget that the National Assembly was just proclaimed some few days ago. How was it possible for the president to announce his ministers when there was no proclamation? The National Assembly had not started sitting. And that aside, even with the appointment or with the election of the president, of the Senate, the deputy, the principal officers have not even been appointed. And don't forget that a lot of political rigmarole, political equation, political permutation and calculation will have to take place. Now that the reality is on ground, where do we sound the Senate, the Senate leader, the chief whip, and all that. And I think by having this 2 weeks break, those are the issues.
Those are the issues that we'll be
sorting out. And without that, they cannot come back and read from the president. Well, the president has sent a letter to us asking us to confirm XY ministers. So I think the process of political communication in this country is a bit badly managed. Because people should have been told that, look, it is not announced. Okay, if you make the announcement now, what does that lead you to? Does it lead to confirmation? Does it lead to the Senate or reading the list? Can they sit? Can they really talk anything?
Okay, but if you have to advise the president,
yes,
what would you have him do right now?
Well, that he has to be able to manage the diversity of his party, the diversity of the nation, and the diversity of the political class. Don't forget that the political class is the greatest thing that we have problem managing in this country. the political class. And the political class is the problem that we have in this country.